So today's session is special for us because Tsaaro Academy was started around a year ago when, around 2nd of June, 2021, that's when we started, right? We buckled up, we came together and we thought, hey, privacy is the upcoming challenge and let's see if we can become part of it. So, and when we started with, one course that we started with, and I used to teach that, and I remember it very, very clearly. I still teach that, by the way, some days, but still, I remember that very, very clearly. It was CIBPE, and honestly, that's the time when I also met Mr. Sudhir, because I did not have CIPM and I did not know how to do CIPM. So Mr. Sudhir, and I used to call him and ask him that if he can help me in teaching CIPM, and that's where I started CIBPE in this company, and Mr. Sudhir started CIPM, by the way. And we have with us, Mr. Bhaskar, right? So Mr. Bhaskar has been a colleague, a friend, somebody who has been in privacy, pretty old in privacy, right? Since 2017, I think we both started working together at a point in time. And we have, none other than Mr. Akhilesh. Akhilesh has been in privacy, I guess. I guess Akhilesh's privacy specific career kind of started when my career also started, right? We both kind of started at a very similar time, very similar projects also we did at a point in time. So we kind of our basis kind of became very similar, right, at a point in time, and that's where we share our relationship. As to we used to think back and look at Indian giants and see how we can implement privacy in them. By the way, those days we both were learning, so we are not. I don't know. We like today the work that we do, and 5 years before the work we used to do has a huge difference. And one of the things that made the difference was the right set of people who taught us, the right set of people who told us what is right and what is wrong, because privacy is not a checklist, right? The more you get into it, the difficult it gets, right? And when it gets difficult, and that's when things that come to your mind is, what do I do? What do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do after this? That keeps my job, gives me more strength to speak out, right? It's not just about a certification, it's also about the strength that you have when you're talking about it. And we have on this session none other than the co-founders of Tsaaro, right? Mr. Rohit Jain and Mr. Krishna Srivastava, and we'll talk about them as well. But introduction. So this is a first session on exam advisory board, right? So the reason for creation of exam advisory board is we wanted to up our game in Tsaaro Academy. We wanted to make sure that whatever is getting published, right, even in exams, content changes are not just published because somebody wanted to change them. They are getting published because they're getting reviewed by the best people in the industry, right? People who actually know what is happening practically and not just theoretically. So if you compare Tsaaro Academy courses as such with other courses in the market, what you will find a huge difference is they're very practical, right? Because we have a consulting company, right, running on top of it, just giving content to the academy telling, hey, this is what is happening in the market. This is CPRA. Now CPRA is coming. So now our content is updated with CPRA. It's not like it will take another year when things will change. It just changed, right? We upgraded it. We took approvals across and moved ahead. So a bit about me. I am the co-founder here and also the CEO of Tsaaro Academy. By studies, I was an engineer, similar to Krishna and Rohit. But what also happened is I kind of started into privacy, and now I think I'm in between a lawyer and an engineer, and that's what I keep telling people, right? It's as an engineer, if you're in privacy, you become a lawyer, half lawyer. But if you're a lawyer in privacy, you become half engineer, right? That's the field, right? It's not just text, right? It's more about engineering and it's more about regulation. So I myself am CIPM, CIPPE, CIPPUS, CIPT, FIP. Also one of the youngest people to be around in IPP advisory boards. Also one of the youngest fellow in information privacies, if you kind of look around. But that is just a bit about me. We have Mr. Sudhir Singh here. Mr. Sudhir comes with plethora of experience, right? It's not just 1 or 2 years of experience. It comes with more than 30 years of experience in the field. He has worked around GRC, cyber, data privacy, IT network. So IT network being a domain, which I honestly, around when I look in industry, very senior people around industry, when cybersecurity started, 15, 20 years before, it started with network. And that's where Mr. Sudhir also, started his work. When you understand the network packets, then you get around, see where data is going, right? And that is the amount of technical capability that Mr. Sudhir has. And again, I don't want to name certifications with him because he has more than I can name on this call right now. But if you think about an IBP certification, he has all of them, right? In ISACA certification, he would have all of them. So I think that's the person you have on call, guys. Yeah. Pulkit Bohra is not well, and Andrew David is not well, so they both are not here. But yeah, they both are privacy experts as well. Pulkit Bohra used to be a DPO in British Telecom. We have Shashikant Akhilesh. So again, Shashikant is a risk consultant, just like I am. So very similar profiles to me and him. GDPR, CCPA, UK GDPR, Turkish privacy law, Middle East law, each and everything. I think if Shashikant is one of the right guys to ask about, right? Implementation specifically, right? He comes with a lot of experience, and he has done a lot of hard work in the past to kind of, compete with the best in privacy. He also has an MBA from IIT Roorkee, where he came to KPMG, and then we started working together. None other than Mr. Bhaskar Shukla. Bhaskar is a data privacy counsel. He and I used to work in KPMG, and also Krishna and also Akhilesh. But today he works in the oil and gas multi giants, where he kind of sits in the data protection office and solves the data protection problems globally, sitting out of India. And that is the type of experience that he brings to the table, is how do we solve a multinational organization's problem, right? One of the industry leaders problems when it comes to DSARs and it comes to implementation of privacy program, right? And that is what the type of experience that he comes with. Mr. Rohit Jain. Mr. Rohit Jain heads privacy technology. He is into cybersecurity space. He looks at implementations around. He's a CIPM. He's a IIT BHU grad. He was a developer before, but then we wanted a developer in our system, so that we can actually do something technical and improve things like software development life cycles and incorporate privacy by designs, not just talk about regulations, right? So Rohit comes with experience in PwC in Netherlands, and then he's joined Tsaaro, where he's kind of looking at our clients and improving privacy by designs of the clients, right? Yeah. Mr. Krishna Srivastav is in InfoSec professional. He's CIPPE, CIPM, cybersecurity at KPMG. I think a lot of buzzwords that come around Krishna for sure. He is ISO 27001 LA, 27701 LA, OTCP. So yeah, he kind of takes care of cybersecurity and compliance projects at Tsaaro, and he's also a director at security at Tsaaro. That's all about introduction, and now I'm not going to waste any more time on introduction. So what kind of certifications can one pursue to get started in the field of data privacy? Right, so that is my question number one that comes to the mind when I think about a privacy 101 session. And the first question that comes to my mind is, what kind of certification can one pursue in field of data privacy? And my question is with Mr. Sudhir, right? You have most number of certifications. So what do you think, what are these options that people have, Mr. Sudhir?
Thank you, Akash, asking this question. I think it's not about what kind of certification, it's more about what kind of background candidate has. For example, take example of Rohit Jain here. He's from the developer background. He understands how the codes could be written while creating a product or project or something. He knows SDLC process. He knows privacy by design. I think the best certification for Rohit Jain is the CIPT in IAPP. For example, Krishna Srivastav coming from the security background, and he knows what are the technical and organizational measures would be a right fit for any organization who is willing to implement the privacy program. CIPM is the best certification for him. And Mr. Bhaskar coming from the law field. So CIPPE talks about the theory part and the explanation of every article exists in any of the data privacy law. CIPP is very, very near to Bhaskar's experience and education part. So it's really depend what candidate carry with relates to experience, and then choose a certification in data privacy. But if you think about the data privacy landscape, it's really very vast. We are implementing a privacy flavor in various industry type, like oil and gas. You really need something else there. However, in medical field or healthcare field, you really need to do something else. So it depends what kind of past background candidate has, and then this candidate can choose any relevant certification path and can achieve it. But I'm not saying that everyone has to do only one certificate here. Let them get into the privacy field, enjoy that that area, and then think about what is more near to his future plan. So I am also coming from IT security and IT security operations and all this, also from GRC background. So I think instead of writing CIPT, CIPM and CIPP is more relevant to my experience.
But Mr. Sudhir, I think that's very well said, right? That's very well wrapped up. I think coming on and also pointing this question to Mr. Bhaskar, right? So Bhaskar, I know you also have been, involved in teaching courses like DPO and CDDPO, and I think you also would know about a different course that we don't have, right? It's CDPSC. So what is your perspective other than IPP, Bhaskar? Right? I get the point, and Mr. Sudhir has very well pointed out why IPP and what certification in IPP and when. Right. So would you like to also take the horizon a bit more and talk a bit about other things that we have?
I think yes, Akash, and thanks, Sudhir. I agree with your thought. So it's the certification which relates to the background of a candidate, which may certainly help the candidate definitely. And other than that, tailored courses like DPO courses, CTDPO course that Tsaaro Academy is running right now. That's a very good entry point. That gives you a very good learning experience from a very high level into privacy domain, into the role of a data protection office or a role of data protection officer, or how you would be like how what will be the expectations from you in the company. So I think these tailored courses can definitely help a candidate who's looking for a privacy career and not just trying to jumpstart the career through big courses like what are there internationally.
I think I'll also, just kind of, I'll kind of add my perspective to all of this as well. So what has also happened is since we have started, one of the goals that we have is to make sure that people get certified. Right. I get the point that, a lot of people come to me and say, hey, what about concepts? Right. So my simple answer to all of them is you cannot get certified without knowing the concepts. Right. So my goal is you get certified, but your goal is you to know those concepts, because otherwise there is no option of passing the exam. Right. So it's 1 + 1 is equals to 2. Right. It's not difficult at all. But coming back to the point, now if I, as a privacy professional, right, leave Tsaaro Academy behind, leave Tsaaro behind, leave everyone here behind. If I'm a privacy professional and I go to Google, right, or I talk to my friends, what do I hear about? I hear about IPP, I hear about CDPSC, right? I hear about, like, overall I have four options, right? CIPP, CIPM, CIPD, or CDPSC. If I'm a privacy professional, that's what I'm looking for. Or let's say if you're in India, you would be hearing about CDDPO nowadays, right? The CDDPO is one of the fastest growing certifications in India, but still. So ISACA CDPSC still has, still is not very specific as such, because when you go and take that exam, it kind of, what it's kind of trying to achieve, right, is a mix of an engineer and a lawyer, right? But in IIPP, it's specific, right? CIPPE, the text, CIPT, technical, right? CIPM, how to build a price. So that's where, IPP kind of wins, right, over the overall. If I look at why, so my question is not which one is better. My question is also what is more market accepted, right? So when I see a market accepted exam, I see CIPP and CIPM and CIPT, right, or a CDDPO. But that's what is market acceptance for me right now, right? But I'm coming to the next question. And guys, if you have any question, feel free to drop those questions in the chat box. And if you want to ask a specific person about your question, please drop his name. I will point that question directly to him, and we'll make sure that we have an answer for you. Okay, so this is an important question, right? And Akhilesh, I think this question is gonna come to you. So if someone is planning to change their domain and come into the field of data privacy, what should they do, Akhilesh?
That's a really interesting question, Akash. So generally, if you are coming from a different background, let us say from infosec, or coming from a altogether different background, right, which we have seen in so many candidates, right, ideally they need to understand why they want to come to privacy, right? So they need to have a basic. So I would suggest they can start with one of the IAPP certifications, so that they have a brief understanding like why privacy and what privacy is all about. But that alone is not enough for them to crack a career into privacy. They need to have a proper mentorship regarding that, like what to need do, like to come into privacy certificate, like into privacy world, right? It's not easy, because when we came into privacy, we had that right support from our seniors, and that is what exactly people require. So one set of IAPP certifications have a right mentor, and practical certifications like CTDPO or DPO will really help them to come into career in privacy.
But Shashikant, also can you also give a bit more perspective into, like, is there a certification that will help solve this problem, or do you think maybe, what is it that can fulfill this solution? So I still cannot feel the 100% solution, right, in terms of transition. So okay, I have two people, right? I have two
Hmm.
people in mind. So answer first should be for somebody who's just starting their careers, right? Somebody
Right.
who's just starting their career, and then we're gonna take this later. But I'm talking about somebody is doing, let's say, cybersecurity, right? And he is like, I want to get into privacy. So what is your advice to him, Shashikant? Right?
Hmm.
What is his next step?
So he should choose a path. I would suggest him to go with CIPPE to understand the basics of privacy from your perspective. Then I would suggest to go with CTTPO, so that he has both the theoretical and practical experience to go and run a job in the privacy.
Okay. But I have another question now. So I think I'm going to point this question out to Krishna. So Krishna, my question to you is, if somebody is just starting their privacy career, right? They know nothing before this, and now they want to start their careers. So what should be their next step, right? I know you have taught a lot of people, and in our company also there are so many new people that learned and are senior now. So what do you think are these few things that these new joinees as privacy professionals should keep in mind? Yeah.
Right. So thank you, Akash, for that question. So how I look at it is pretty much it's all about data in the end, right? So when you talk about privacy, you can't just talk about privacy. You have to understand certain IT aspects around privacy, which can also help you achieve certain rights that are mentioned in regulations. So if you are someone who's starting out in the data privacy domain, reading about laws will definitely get you there, but you also have to understand the IT infrastructure a little. You will have to identify the different kind of systems that talk to each other and how they function exactly, so that you can imbibe the culture of privacy onto those systems. At the same time, while I was also giving my CIPM examination, what I learned was there's a lot of focus on awareness and trainings as well. So privacy is something which you also have to learn. You'll have to remember the key terminologies, right? It's not only about understanding a data privacy law and trying to implement that law. There are new terminologies that will come your way, something that are specific to GDPR, or some other terms would be specific to any other data privacy laws. So it is really important for anyone who's venturing into the domain to identify the key terminologies that are used in a conversation with a privacy professional, because that will definitely help you also understand how people perceive certain things and what is their perspective on different subject topics as well. So for someone who's new into the domain, don't just focus on data privacy. The courses will help you understand the practical nuances of it and how we as privacy professionals would like to take it forward. But from a learner's perspective, we have to look at those courses. You have to understand the IT infrastructure. And like Sudhir sir also
Yep.
pointed out, the technical and organizational measures. That is also
Yep.
a focus that should be in mind.
Yeah, right, Krishna. Thank you for your perspective. So I have another question, and before we get into Q&A with everyone, who's listening to us, just one quick question to Mr. Rohit Jain, because we all know that the Indian market, is getting more and more concerned, because we again have a notification that a law may be there in the next summers, and obviously we know that because Supreme Court has already made it a right for everyone to have privacy, so government can't run away from this. So we will have something or the other. But Rohit, like, if because people are listening about certifications, right? So they're also looking forward to, knowing more about, how things are done. But Rohit, would you like to also tell us what is the future ahead, right, in India for privacy?
It's a good question, and this is where this is a question people ask when they want to plan their career forward, and this is where the importance of certifications come in, and this is something where we see that the government is working on the law, and it will be similar to something around GDPR, and so the future of privacy, I would say it would go somewhere in around data governance, because it has like three areas, similar to what IPP has done. So once you get to know how the regulation looks like, but eventually it's all about data. You cannot just have your policies and say that, okay, we are done. So your applications, your data, it has to adhere to the regulation that will come in, and that is where you would see that all the major companies will have a hard time that how we actually implement it,
Right.
because for
Right.
now it's a area where people have not touched upon. They have scattered their data all over the globe. Okay, this is the cheaper rate that we are going having for the data storage, so we go for a data center there. So they have not
Yeah.
looked upon, okay, data localization has to happen. So this is something which people should keep in mind.
Yeah. I think Rohit very fairly put through. Right. And I think I'm just gonna go back to questions now. So Mr. Vikas has a question for Mr. Sudhir. So the question is, I'm currently handling the technical controls, working on Veronis, Nuix, MS Purview tools aligned with GDPR for UK-based client. I want to get into and learn the core data privacy from a function perspective. What should be the road ahead or path I should take? And
Okay.
how certification would help me, and I can use those to help achieve the objective in terms of questions. Yeah, perfect. Mr. Sudhi, the question
Yeah.
is for you.
So if I still remember the name, it's Vikas
Yeah.
who asked this question. So Vikas, I think you have a very genuine question here. When people, they are already touching the edge of data privacy, but they are not completely into it. As you are already there, I think, and you are working one part of the data already, where you scan the data and present to the data owners that this is what we have in place. But I think most of the organization who already have started implementing data privacy program in their area, in their organization, they first create the data governance part, and generically there are three roles, which are data protection officer at the top, and then you have data privacy leader, and then you have data privacy champions. I think data privacy implementation revolves around people, process, and technology. If you get into the data privacy champion sort of area, where you can just manage your function and take responsibility that, yeah, let me anchor data privacy into my function, all issues, all awareness, implementations, advisory into your function with the help of data privacy office. If you can take that responsibility, it will help you to get into the field, and then you can decide on the roadmap whether you would like to go to the program management or implementation of data privacy, or you are more interested into designing of any product and would like to go into the data privacy technologist kind of path. That's what my suggestion here.
Yeah, that's a great pointer. And I'm gonna put the next question now. I'm just completed my data science and analytics. How to privacy on site? How basically I think what the question is I'm gonna work in data science, right? But is there a way to implement data privacy or think about data privacy while I'm in the organization and working in data science, Krishna?
Okay, thank you, Shendu, for the question. I think your question mostly revolves around how you can probably imbibe certain privacy design principles or privacy principles while you actively do your data science role in a company. right? So when you look at data science, right, there are certain phases to it or certain aspects to it, and it depends on the kind of phase you are a part of, right? If you are a part of the data engineering team, then you will have to identify certain systems, certain privacy principles that you can also implement in the program cycle, right? And if you are not a part of the data privacy team or the information security team that usually takes care of these activities, like Sudhir sir just mentioned, that you would want to reach out to your data privacy office and see that if you can become a privacy champion for the process that you are owning as of now, right? For example, if you are
Right,
into
Krishna.
visualizations and if you're collecting that kind of data, then you would need to reach out to your data privacy team and identify what you can do as a person to put in those principles in practice.
Yeah, I think pointing out to our next. So, guys, this is again, Sanchita has asked the question. So, is it vital or helpful to take some training course and then get started with IPP, or do you think that people can just come into Tsaaro Academy and start with the IPP course? Or do you think that some other course like a DPO or a DPF that we have is a starting point? And she comes from a law background. So, yeah, over to you, Rohit.
See, always you can go for fundamental courses, but I always say that IAPP courses and SARO trainings have been, what to say, formalized in a manner that even if you do not have a background, if you do not have a knowledge, you will be able to pick it up. We have our experts, we have our mentorship program, and if you want a one-on-one, we also facilitate that. So I do not think that if you are aiming for a direct industry level certification, you just need to there's any what to say course, that intermediate course you want to go for.
Right,
There
right.
are certain level of courses, of course, where you get to know more about the knowledge. For example, for CTDPO, we always say that you should always have a prior certification for it, because there we'll be teaching about much more practical industry level experience. But for the other courses, for example, CIPPE, there are no prerequisites. So if you have an anxiety there where you think that you will be able to clear that course or not, or will it be too hard for you, please trust us. We'll be able to handle you.
Yeah, and I think Rohit, I think that's one of the best answers for the day, right? And and I think we all are kind of smiling because the type of questions come to us is very similar to this. But nonetheless, we are one of the biggest academies of privacy in Asia now, not just India. So, and with our success rate, right? If you just on LinkedIn, if you just search us, I think we don't have to give you feedback. You can just search for us on LinkedIn and just see how many people pass the exam regularly. So, but coming on to the questions, right? So Namrata has asked a specific question on CPP US, but I only know one CPP US in this call, right? So automatically the question is for you. So how should we clear the CIPP US exam, Akhilesh, and raw and clear the truth about CIPP US? Over to you.
Right, Akash. So, irrespective, let it be CIPP US or CIPP E, right? The key is to read through the material that has been provided. That is very important. Don't try to skip those basic steps, right? You go to this material and practice the questions that are available. That will really help you. And those are the two things I would always suggest. And wherever topics you're having a doubt, right? If you're into a training, ask your trainer to teach them or have a one-on-one call. That will help you in terms of clearing the exam. But at least 30 to 40 hours of dedicated studies required for any of the CIPP exams if you want to clear.
Yeah. But can you also talk a bit about how, I know when you were doing CIPP US, right? You took like you training now also CIPP US. So what do you think about training, Akhilesh? Do you think and how much time do you think, we're gonna spend to clear the exam?
Right. See, compared to other CIPP exams, US is little difficult because the number of regulatory requirements involved is more. CIPP Europe in comparison, right? It's one GDPR that we are going to read through, but US does not have any like comprehensive law. It's all sectoral specific or state specific, so that requires some additional effort when compared to Europe, and that is why you need to have some more amount of hard work required for US. But it's not that difficult. Overall, the flow is very same, right? When to have your opt-in or when to have your opt-out. So you just need to understand where they're coming from, what's the background of it. Like if you see the healthcare data, why it is protected more when compared to others. So if you understand that, that makes things very clearer for us to clear.
Yeah. I think my 2 cents on this is, see, why kind of my personal focus is CIPP US, and that is the next exam I'm also taking, by the way, to everyone, because what is happening is deadline is coming and CPRA is coming, right? And then when the deadline is going to hit, like, it's already starting to hit. So we see a lot of business, a lot of people coming in calling us saying, hey, can you fix this for us? Can you fix that for us, right? And CPRA is getting hotter by the day. So I think by the end of this year, all privacy professionals will rather have CPRA under the belt globally, because every business that definitely runs through US, right? And they definitely have an office in California. And definitely some Californian resident down the line is a customer, right? Or down the line is like for example, and if somebody's running an IT company, then down the line some Indian is working for them from India, right? Just saying. So down the line, if you are doing a business, then down the line it is in California. So every business, people ask me would it apply, I say that down the line it should logically. But so CIPP US for me is the new buzzword, and that's what I'm also after in terms of exam. And by the way, we saw like a lot of people joining us, but I will not talk about that again. I'll stick to the questions. So Shivam has asked, I'm a law student. I do not belong to technical background. And this is the same thing that Bhaskar used to tell me like few years back, right? I'm a law student and I do not belong to technical background. How should I start my career in data privacy field, Bhaskar?
Thanks, Akash. Thank you for the question, Shivam. I think you are in a place where I was a couple of years back. It was the exact same thing. But for a law student, I think there are multiple opportunities that you get if you want to get into data privacy. How I got into data privacy was through the role of in-house counsel. You get exposure to multiple contractual requirements which have data privacy in them. You see clients asking for compliance requirements for privacy impact assessments. So I think you have multiple ways to get into privacy as a consultant or as an in-house counsel, and I think that can be a starting point.
Praveen has asked which certification, I'll take this up, helps to implement privacy in an organization. So Praveen, a certification that would help you to implement privacy in an organization would be ISO 27701 LI, lead implementer, and also the CTDPO of Tsaaro Academy. So I think those are the two certifications from Tsaaro Academy that should solve your problem of implementation, because IAPP certification is about concepts, right? So when you are building it, and then you need to know what is the right step you should take. That's when IAPP is the best suited certification. Tsaaro Academy's DPO is a similar certification. CDPSC is also a similar certification, right? They're great certifications to have, because the moment you start implementing, there are thousands of questions that come to your mind, and then you implement it right. But if you want to know how to implement or what to do, that's ISO 27701 LI, and also CDDPO, right? Certified Tsaaro Data Protection Officer. So Karan has asked, for someone who is starting out in data privacy, would it be better to go for, I'll again take this question, right? This question is short. CIPP-A or CIPP-E? So Karan, there's a difference. I will not answer this question in terms of A or E. I'll answer this question in terms of market acceptance. So CIPP-E is the certification of the world, right? And CIPP-A is a certification that is still, in this baby stages. So again, I hope I've answered you already. So Anis has a question, and now I'm putting this question to Mr. Sudhir now. So I'm in the process of switching my domain from law, corporate affairs, operations to data analytics. From the discussion so far, I understand that the best certification for me would be CIPP. Please advise, Mr. Sudhir.
I think this is a bit tricky, but when you say you would be switching to data analytics, right?
No, he's in data analytics. He's switching,
Okay, then it's a quite simple one here, because you already know the type of data processed in organization, and you know how to handle it. You know what measures need to be taken care when it will be processed during the analytics functions or so. And I think, again, I would like to mention that find out what is the requirement in your domain where you would like to have exposure around data privacy, and what does it mean. You see what business your organization manages, what type of business eventually, and then see if you are getting into data privacy, whether you can discuss with your immediate stakeholders where you could be best fit in. Take an example of data masking and data anonymization. When you brought data from source system to your place, when you do some analytics on it. And I think CIPM, or from IAPP perspective, and these privacy courses have two folds. One is the privacy part and another one is the protection part. So privacy tells more about understanding the applicable law, and protection is more around you identified the information and how to protect it now. So work with your immediate stakeholders and see where are the opportunities you can get into or fit yourself. And I think your task might be more around privacy manager kind of role, where you can choose CIPM from IAPP side, and can also see over the time if CIPT would be for you. But related to related to the Tsaaro courses, Akash, I would like to have your comments here too. What courses from Tsaaro Academy would be fit here if you compare with CIPM and CIPT?
I think most of the Tsaaro courses are kind of, they're not substitutes to any courses. We build courses around IPP, right? So if you look at any IPP course and top it up with CDDPO, it would be a successful venture, right? That's what we are after. So we know that IPP courses come with so much value that we build CDDPO above them. Howsoever, for people who cannot afford when they're starting, they're in college, right? They cannot, they're just starting their careers, right? And they want to do a very good course, right, which comes with 120% quality, similar to CIPPE. My suggestion or my recommendation to them has always been the DPO of Tsaaro, right? So when you do a DPO of Tsaaro, you learn a lot about global laws, and then earlier we did not have an exam to clear the certification, but now without clearing the exam, you cannot even get a certificate from Tsaaro Academy. So I think we're just making it more difficult by the day, and the exam is also getting difficult by the day. So yeah, earlier the better, but just saying. So is 27701 relevant globally compared to IPP ISACA certifications, Alan? So yeah, Alan, the answer is they are like very different things. Like they're very different things. So why do I say they're different? Is like you can't be comparing CISSP to ISO 27001 lead implementer, right? So they are like different things, right? CISSP is like a master's, right? So it's already been called a master's in UK. So it's an equivalent. If you are a CISSP, then you already in a master's program, right? That's what the level of a CIPPE or a CIPM or a CIPT also is, right? There, it's not just a certification, because that's what you do to kind of make sure that you are around. So just say, so ISO 27701 LA would not be a difficult exam to clear, right? But a CIPPE would be a difficult exam to clear. So having a CIPPE and 27701 are two different things, because CIPP, CIPM are about prestige, right? And ISO 27001 is about requirement, right? You want to learn something and you get it. But ISO 27701 is still not that difficult. So if somebody has IPP, they are star-leaded in the privacy domain. Yeah, I hope that kind of answer. But I know some speakers would have different perspective to this. If somebody wants to speak up. So how helpful will DSCI's DCPP considering? So we also started DCPP course, by the way, and I think that's why Vipin has asked a very specific question. And Akhilesh, I know, you're the right person for this. So Akhilesh, how do you think, a DSCI's DCPP would be, comparing the current rules? Yeah.
DCPP is kind of a fundamental course if you're looking into privacy and you don't want to go into CIPP, which is too more technical, I'll say. Like then you can prefer DCPP. But comparing to the market worth, I would suggest based on your constraints that you have. Like if you're a student, you don't want to check what privacy is, then DCPP is one that you can look into it. But overall, for market acceptance rate, is always the IAPP courses or something about that you need to check. But DCPP is something that is fundamentals, mostly covering about Indian aspects of the privacy and also the GDPR aspects of privacy. So it's like fundamentals you want to learn, then DCPP is something you can look into it.
What is the first word that comes to your mind whenever you hear about a privacy certification? Right. So whenever somebody says privacy certification, what is the first word that comes to your mind? You just have to drop this in the chat, right? And we will start the session back with that comment. So and this, first of all, my question is to the trainers. What is the first word that comes to trainers' mind, right? To exam advisory board people's mind when you hear about privacy certifications? Most of IT engineers handle with just reading the rules. Why do we need certifications? I think Smita, I will take that question, right? That's a very true question, and I love answering this question around in the industry. So a lot of people come to me, and like they always have this thought as to why certify. So why do we certify? So we certify for different reasons, not just because we get CIPPE, we get, those are not the true reasons, right? I'll tell you the true reason behind it. The true reason is when you are a legal professional, when you are a general counsel, right? Or when you are somebody who needs to be heard, right? When you want somebody to take your advice seriously, that's when you get certified, right? And that's when, because how would you compare someone? See, people come to me and they're like, hey, can certification take over experience? No, obviously not, right? Certification is something else, experience is something else. You cannot think that all your experience gets captured into one certification and you pass the exam. That's not how it works. But my question to you is, if you have experience, let's say you have experience, right? There are two people with experience, me and Krishna, right? And we can do a war of words on privacy, on certifications. But I am still FIP and he's not, isn't it, Krishna? So I'm just saying, so I get more credit. By the way, he'll become an FIP in 2 weeks, but still, till 2 weeks I have more credit, right? Because you cannot be going every time and checking, okay, do you know PIA, do you know ROPA, but what is that first level of entry? That's a certification, right? Even if you look at internal audit into privacy or ISO 27701 certification for the company, they want people to be certified. So when you're certified, it gives confidence to the overall audit, to the board of your company, right? It gives confidence to your competitors, to your vendors, to your other people, right? So it's not about, people can know rules, right? It's not about rules, my friend. It's very deep down. The more you learn, the more you grow the ladder up, the more you'll understand what needs to be done at the bottom, right? So at the bottom, it feels it's a set of rules, right? Why should we, right? But as you grow up to the ladder, as you sit with the DPO, as you sit with the CISO, as you sit with the board, as you sit with the CEO, then you will really understand why is it important. It's not about knowing privacy, it's about certifying to privacy. These are two very different things. But obviously you cannot certify to privacy without knowing privacy. That's another fact, but just saying. So I have a question. Okay, the question is with Bhaskar now, the next question. So we'll come to Rohit next after this. So the question is, what certificate course should a beginner begin with to get selected as in-house counsel, Mr. Bhaskar?
Thanks, Akash, and thanks for the question. I think there's no specific requirement for getting a certification to become an in-house counsel or to get the role of in-house counsel. It obviously depends on the availability of role vacancies in the market, and then you need to have good research skills, good drafting skills. I think those are the two skills that you need to for becoming an in-house counsel.
Yeah. So next question. Is ISO 27701 an open book certification? Akhilesh.
Been long, Akash. I'm not sure whether there's any change with the exam pattern.
So ISO 27701 is usually not an open book certification, not at Tsaaro Academy, but even for PECB, it is not an open book certification. If you open a book somehow that's something that we don't know, right?
But I have seen other certifications where it has been open book,
Yeah,
so we don't talk
yeah,
about
but
them.
yeah,
That's
but ISO 27701 LI, like when you go for like smaller vendors, right? If you, let's say you go, I know there are a lot of vendors in the market. So if you just pay the fees of training, then you'll get the certificate.
that's what I was not
So
naming, but it's ideal. It
yeah,
should not be an open.
I know they're not just open book, they're open everything, right? So open answer book.
Akash, this question, why this question been asked? I think ISO 27001 was an open book exam, right?
Yeah, Mr. Sudhir, I was
So ISO
you have to answer
27001,
this.
when
You have to
when
answer.
I pass my lead implementer and lead auditor one, so ISO 27001 is like creating the scope and defining the controls and referring your notes and all this. It was an open book when I did
Yeah,
my certification. When it comes to 27701, it is like building on top of ISO 27001 and understanding only the privacy aspect and some portion of the ISO 27001. For example, leveraging the existing steering committee or leveraging existing technical controls, identifying where organization acting as a processor or controller. So 27701 is not an open book exam or certification, but 27001, yes, if I remember it correctly.
perfect. I think that's something that we really needed from you, because the type of the you are, the certification guru, Mr. Sudhir, right? And you've done so many of them. You would have the right experience of each and one and how it feels. So I think I'll always have that thought process that that's coming from you. That's the truth, right? That we all have to agree to. So coming on to the next question. So if you look at IT engineers, right, and you come from a similar profile, right? IT engineering. So do you think CIPT makes sense? And I know you have not taken CIPT specifically, but I know you were part of the trainings. You went on the course structure, and we both have been discussing about what should be next. So what do you think, Rohit? Do you think CIPT makes sense to IT engineer?
Most of the, I would say, answer is hidden in your question itself. The problem with the IT engineers is they themselves start reading it, they understand, they build their own perception of things, and then they say we know it. And once the thing gets into the production, then you actually know what happened. So getting certified, you know that okay, your knowledge, your understanding, your what to say, whatever you grasped has been benchmarked, has been baselined by somebody else, by an exam or by a training. So that's why it becomes very necessary. And in terms of engineering, there are other roles also, other roles such as management, because you do not remain an engineer for long. Like you want to change, sometimes people change into a program manager role or an SDM role, software development a manager role. There also you need to understand, okay, how exactly your governance framework work. So that is where you need your knowledge to be baselined. So certifications help in that manner. So again, I would read out your question. See, this is one big
So
problem
Rohit,
that the
I think
industry
Rohit, we
faces.
will go to the next question. So okay, question to Mr. Bhaskar: what cybersecurity courses should one do alongside privacy? And also question to Krishna, after Bhaskar. Same question.
So from a law, like legal standpoint, I felt there's a compliance scale, and to better understand, to better implement, and to better draw a line, because legal is one and zero, black and white. So you need to have some courses on ethics in cybersecurity, which can definitely help you as a legal professional in privacy space.
Yeah, Krishna.
Sure. I'll just add on to it. I'll just add the two courses that I have in mind when someone starts out in the cybersecurity domain. People usually go for the CEH, right? The Certified Ethical Hacker. That's what most freshers go for. And apart from that, there's also CompTIA Security Plus. So these are some basic entry-level cybersecurity
Krishna, what about
certifications you can
CISM?
explore. Yeah, so CISM is something people usually go for with a more set of experience and program management experience as well. And that is when people usually go for CISM or CISSP certifications.
Yeah. next question. So Alan has asked, is ISO 27701 relevant compared to IAPP SACA? I've kind of taken this question, but I think this question has came up again. So, but still, Mr. Sudhir. So what is the relevance of?
I didn't understand the essence of the question, Akash. Could you repeat that for me, please?
Is ISO 27701 relevant when we compare it globally to IAPP and SACA certifications? Yeah.
Yeah. So let me understand. ISO 27701 is actually a standard, and IAPP, and ISACA. These organizations, they are more serious around creating awareness and making people more knowledgeable around the topics. So
Yeah.
27701 is a requirement for organizations to implement the standard, and motivators could be your customers, your law requirement, or your product need to be certified or something like this. But IAPP and ISACA, their certifications are more around creating professionals who could eventually implement this ISO 27701 for organizations.
Yeah. So next question. So basically, if somebody has to, if somebody's in privacy domain, right? I am in privacy domain. I'm 2 years, 3 years into experience, right? If I have to, become more relevant in my organization, all right? If I have to change job, if I have to take a promotion, it's a recession market, right? Recession is around, right? How do I keep my job safe, right? So Rohit.
See, getting certified will always give your senior ops a confidence that you're serious about your career, the path you have chosen, and the path you have communicated to them. So I think so. This is one good thing because this also upgrades your CV.
Akash, I would like to add here.
Yeah.
This is the perfect time for privacy professionals or aspirants who would like to come into this field. During the recession, you will see more mergers, more takeovers, more selling of the organizations. And when you think about the privacy, it starts from thinking of doing something. So you being a privacy professional would contribute when merging would happen, or you are planning to sell some part of organization to someone else. So this is the right time to think about privacy. It will not be faded into the recession time. I'm sure about that.
Yeah. And I think as we come around, we see issues with job, but somehow cybersecurity jobs and privacy jobs are just increasing rather than decreasing. So it's interesting to see our field growing day by day and sticking solid, right, in all the difficult times. But still, right, if the more you certified, the better it is in times of recession. So I know a lot of learners here are already from a CIPPE thought process and a law background. So what do you think, right, Mr. Bhaskar, right, the domain has to offer for legal fraternity, right? And if we compare the legal fraternity and we think about certifications like DPO of Tsaaro Academy, or if you look at a CIPPE, right? So what does it have for the legal fraternity, Mr. Bhaskar?
Okay, thanks, Akash. And I think it's a very interesting question because this relates to like every common law student who is working who's working in a law firm or who is working as an in-house counsel. So in law firms, mostly you don't always get the business exposure unless you're on a top level. You're managing the projects, you're managing the deliverables of the clients. So there's a gap in the legal delivery of business and then the business risks. So when you get into the privacy space, this particular domain, this helps me understand the business processes end to end, right from the starting of life cycle of personal data, collection of data, then how it's being used, stored, or transferred. So it gave me an exposure to business, how business is being run, how business is being conducted in a company, in an organization, and how then you cover the rest. How do you see compliance? It's not always a like black and white area. There's a compliance scale. You look at every case. You look at every question. I think this space has a lot to offer to lawyers because you get a business understanding. It bridges the gap of legal compliance with business risks. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Bhaskar. So I hope that answers the question. But again, this is like a very in-depth question, and I'm going to point it out to Akhilesh now. So Akhilesh, so coming from a law background and having had some exposure to GDPR
Mhm.
in terms of DPAs, internal transfers, he did CIPPE, right? And he has now a good understanding of the regulation. So he also wants to actually explore some implementations of data privacy protection programs, right? Including some technical measures adopted, right? So yeah, what should he do, Mr. Akhilesh?
Right. So once you complete your CIPP, there are very few courses that will help you to understand the practical nuances. So one of them is ISO 27701. I would always suggest that if you're interested in implementation. And along with that, there is CTTPO2, which helps you to talk about the practical implementations, like how do you do a ROPA or how do you do a PIMS, right? So if you want to implement certain things around that, so I would suggest one of those two certifications to go ahead and do that. That will really help your career.
Yeah, and I would suggest CDDPO as well, by the way. But Arun has asked, as a law graduate and certification, right? And in this question, we'll point out to Mr. Rohit. So, so as a law graduate and after certification, what should a fresher to privacy field target? Should he target law firms? Should he target consulting companies like Deloitte, PwC, or should he target an MNC to grow one's privacy career? Yeah, what should he target, Mr. Rohit?
Guys, it's a very subjective question because again the market is growing and there are not many firms where people actually know how privacy is implemented and how privacy works with technology. And Saro is one leading brand. And if you're confident enough that you are good enough, I would say give the interview. Try to clear this one. If you're able to come near to it, you will get into all the MNCs and all the fields that you have mentioned. But it also depends on what kind of work you do, like, because consultancy is very different and your product based companies are very different. So I would say research a bit into that. It would be a very long debate on this.
See, going into law firms and consulting companies, right, are always for freshers, right? Because when you look at an industry, you want to be more experienced, and when you are a counsel, right? I don't know if Bhaskar, I'm right or wrong, but from my perspective, from any consultant's perspective who's learning, it's better to go to a law firm or go to a consulting company. But also, what I've seen is that they're the best law firms in India. They're doing regulatory, thought process, right? They're coming down to saying, hey, this is the regulation that will apply and this is the risk that you have, right? But when you are in a consulting company like a PwC or Deloitte or Saro, right, so you would actually be doing things like implementing like a PIA, a ROPA, a more technical privacy thing. So it depends on what you're after, right? If you're after regulatory matrices, after knowing a lot about regulations, a lot about laws, law firms are the best place for you. If you are more into implementations, right? Like for example, the consulting practice of Saro is an implementation practice, right? It's not a practice which just tells, hey, these are the things that you have to do. We do those things, right? So again, so this is a huge difference. But as a fresher, you have two options: go to a law firm or come to us, right? So yeah, isn't the recession different this time? More jobs in the US as compared to capable workers, right? The question has been asked by Smita, and I'll point this question again to Mr. Sudhir. Yeah.
I really don't know with the financial market what kind of recession it would be, but
Yeah.
I think uh, growing accountability across world related to privacy, data privacy, it ensures us that we'll be having more more tasks to do, more tasks to mature this industry type, and more responsibility to create the awareness through certifications and giving the
Yeah.
webinars and
And
talking to people and mentoring them and all.
yeah,
So
I will
yeah,
also
yes,
add in a stat from Academy, Mr. Sudhir. So we are teaching more students than past 3 months this month,
yeah,
and we are in our consulting practice, we are doing 2 times the business that we were doing 3 months back. So yeah, I think it's interesting that everybody talks about recession, but I don't think it's anywhere close to cybersecurity privacy, because there's such a shortage of people,
Yeah.
and people who actually know something. There's such a huge shortage that if you know something in privacy, right, you can just go up, right? And recession or something is not for our industry. Yeah.
Let me give you another example of this war happening in world. Specific between these two countries. People were thinking about losing jobs and having some more pressure on it, on people. But from IT perspective, we are getting more work because Europe would be facing some electricity crisis during winter, and we have a lot to do more assessments how we protect our data centers during that time, and we have started doing it. So think from recession perspective as well, when you will be merging, when organization would be merging, bind another one, smartly introducing new products, you have more work around DPIA or PIAs, or merger and acquisition processes need to be improved from privacy perspective. So recession could be any type, but definitely we will be having more to do at that time.
Yeah, thank you for the perspective. I think it's interesting that whatever happens, whatever happens around, it's sad, by the way, sometimes, but for a cybersecurity guy, for a privacy guy, it's whatever happens, we have to watch it, right, very closely, so that the data is safe, right, and our work keeps increasing, right. If it's a crisis, if it's COVID, our work increased, right. If it's a war, our work increased, right. Somehow anything and everything that happens, privacy professionals' work keeps increasing, right? It's interesting fact around in the market. But yeah, so Aziz has asked a very important question: which is better, right? An ISO lead implementer or a lead auditor, and how can one make a choice? And who is better? PCB, Tsaaro, Exemplar. I think you want to say Exemplar Global. See, I think who's better, first of all, in terms of brand. I think PCB is the biggest brand for ISO trainings, right? ISO LILA. So if you ask me, the best that you can get is ISO 27701 LAPECB. But if you ask me what you should get, at the best price, or the something that teaches you the best, maybe also Tsaaro Academy certification if you're looking for in LI or LA. So yeah, I think we kind of took the DSCI's DCPP question, right? But DSCI's DCPP question is kind of pretty straightforward, right? And a lot of time people ask me this question saying, why DCPP, right? Because these are certifications that have just started, guys, right? And they are going to become very relevant very soon and going to become more costly in next 1 year, right? They have just started. It's been very less time since privacy has been talked about in India, so they're not that costly. And my suggestion is to take them right now and keep them with you, right? Keep the certification running so that it becomes easy for you, as and when in a year when we'll have a law, then there will be like there won't be any time for them also to teach you, or they'll make the certification more difficult. But yeah.
Akash, one
So,
question for you. How to choose between lead auditor and lead implementer? Which one would you prefer?
I think it depends actually, but I would actually prefer a lead auditor, right?
Sorry, Akash, I'm just pitching in, and so Shashikant, my thinking is you cannot audit what you don't know.
True.
So if you are not an implementer, if you don't know how to implement the controls, auditor, or when you become auditor, you would not be knowing how to audit these work done on ground. Let me give you one example. One network guy, when I was doing audit work, one network guy came to me and shows that access list has been implemented in this edge router. And if I would have been an ordinary auditor, I would say, okay, control is passed. I have the evidence. I know it is there in place. But when I checked the configuration, I found that the access list was there, but it has not implemented on a particular interface. So
Right.
the function was not working eventually. So that's how you could differentiate. When you implement, you can audit it better. So implementer first and auditor later. That's my say.
Yeah, I think somebody has asked, what does Tsaaro mean? So Tsaaro means Sare, right? It means everyone. So it means inclusion, by the way. So my question to Mr. Krishna, he just cleared CIPP and CIPM, right? And so what is the difference between CIPP and CIPM, Mr. Krishna?
Sure, Akash. So I think the basic difference is how the certification focuses on a certain aspect of data privacy. So CIPPE mostly focuses on the regulations, and GDPR being one of the more industry-wide accepted regulations, right? It's kind of the benchmark for data privacy regulations across the world. So CIPP focuses on the laws, the regulations, how it came into effect, what are the different organizations from which GDPR was inspired, some other directives that the EU had in place, right? And the CIPM focuses more on, from a program management perspective, how you can implement a privacy program into an organization, the right kind of governance structure, the data lifecycle management that you need to have in place. Right? So CIPM's core focus is more on the privacy management part, and CIPP focuses more on the privacy regulation, GDPR.
So what are the must-have skills for a data protection officer, Mr. Sudhir?
Yeah, data protection officers plays actually not plays wearing two hats. One hat towards the respective data protection authorities, where he needs to navigate the situation in privacy law perspective. So privacy law, understanding the applicable one, whatever it is, shall be there. And another hat is reporting the internal maturity of data privacy towards the organization stakeholders. That's, we say, leadership skills. So at the same time, he is also responsible to educate rest of the people existing in organization. So understanding of data privacy laws, understanding of measuring the privacy maturity and conduct some audits, and then presenting this to senior management. That's what is very important. From certification perspective, I think Tsaaro has enough certification exist which help to create some knowledge around the DPO role.
Yeah.
And those are CT, DPO, and other one.
DPO.
DPO, yeah.
But I have another question. So as a law graduate, right, and we're talking about data breaches, so we should point this out to Rohit Jain. So Rohit, as a law grad and also having sound knowledge in data breach, how these certification courses will help get into data privacy, and what type of courses should one opt for to get more exposures and better placements? Right, great question, by the way.
Guys, I think so. You fall into the category where CIPPE and CIPT make sense for you, so that you understand the regulation, what it talks about, and why data breach is such a problem, and then you can know about how an application and how data is to be protected by it.
Okay, so one more question to go, I guess. If you have time, PCB is best. I think what you should go for is Tsaaro Academy is LALI. I think that's what I also suggested before. So I think that is something that you should go for. It's but yeah, I think since we are towards the end of the session, right? We are towards the end of our discussion. We just want to thank you first of all for spending so much time with us. Right? It's 1.5 hours is a lot of time, and you are here. I just want to thank you. Right? Just want to say thank you. A quick thank you to you that you have joined the session. We feel privileged to have answered you. There are a few questions that we were not able to take. There are a few questions I definitely know we were not able to answer as you would have wanted it to be, but we tried our best, right? But still, if you have any questions, you can just keep commenting in this link, and we will keep answering them one by one. Please connect with our speakers. If you have any questions, please also drop them. I know all of us are always ready to answer questions, and sometimes it takes some delay, but definitely if you're posting question on LinkedIn, we will definitely answer it. Come ending the session with a few disclaimers. This session was not a legal advice, right? The session and the speakers in the session do not represent their companies, right? The session is just for knowledge basis, and that is all the session is for. I just before ending the session, I would just hand the mic over to all our speakers, right, one by one, starting with B, right? So Bhaskar. So to give a short thank you note, and then after B, it's Krishna, then Rohit, then Shashikant. Over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Akash, and thank you everyone for joining. And thank you to the speakers also. I think it was really insightful. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you everyone for the time. I understand it's a Sunday, and thank you for spending your time on us. And I think it's also important for us because we learn a lot from your questions as well. So thank you again for that.
Guys, thank you. And if you have any follow-up queries, please connect with us, send us messages. If you need to know anything about privacy engineering or how privacy is incorporated in SDLC, please feel free to reach out to me. I would help you. So, yeah, bye. Have a nice day.
So thank you everyone for joining, and thank you so much, Saurav, for arranging the session, and also for the panelists for a great session. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Akash and Tsaaro family, creating this beautiful privacy world here. Appreciate your efforts. And thank you, audiences, joining this session. And we are very much open to your questions offline as well. Please reach out to us and we'll be more than happy. Also, if you need any mentoring, we are there to help you out. Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Sudhir. Thank you, Krishna. Thank you, Rohit. Thank you, Bhaskar. And thank you, Akhilesh. And thank you, everyone, for joining the session. And I wish you all the luck and all the best for your upcoming certifications. And looking forward to talking more to you day by day, in coming days as to solving problems. And a big thank you note from Tsaaro Academy that you are here in the session, to all the panelists, to everyone who's a speaker, to everyone who's an exam advisory board. Thanks a ton for helping us in growing as big as we are. And thank you everyone for joining the session, and have a nice day. And we're going to end the session on this. Yeah. Have a nice day, guys. Bye. Bye.